Welcome back to the channel. Right, today we're going to talk about books. I've got some lovely new books I'm going to talk to you about. Lenny Larkin's new book, Flower Farming for Profit, profit being the operative word. Lisa Mason-Ziegler's The Cut Flower Handbook, a fabulous little offering from Ad Volley Richmond, A Short History of Flowers, gorgeous. And we're going to have a quick look at this glorious masterpiece, Polly Nicholson's new book about tulips, The Tulip Garden. Now, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe, press the bell icon, and we'll tell you when we've got more clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks we give you along the way are useful, you can always buy me a coffee, or better still, join my club. Links to coffee buying and club membership are in the blurb to all my clips. Right, let's get on. So I'm going to start with this lovely book by Ad Volley Richmond, and it's called A Short History of Flowers. And I think the title is misleading because while each section and each subject, here we have the Californian poppy, and there we have the wallflower. They're very short. Look, the wallflower is 1 page. Each section is full of information. And while it's laid out one variety at a time, so you can pick it up just if you've got 5 or 10 minutes and learn something. It's beautifully written. It's absolutely charming. But what you also get is an overview of flower growing history. If you read the book cover to cover, which I'm in the process of doing, there are names that come up again and again and again. There are stories of adventure and traveling the world that give you an idea of how the passion for growing flowers is something that has been going on for centuries and centuries, and the links and relationships that there are between people. There's such lovely stories, very human, people just indulging their passions. Anyway, I thought I would read you one of them because then you'll see how much you get, so how much information you get in such a short little patch. And I'm going to read you about tulips because it's April and the tulips this year have had a really good season. So I'm going to read you 2 whole pages. I hope you'll indulge me, and it'll give you an idea of how beautifully she writes and how much information you get in 2 sides of print. The illustrations, by the way, each variety gets a lovely illustration made by Sarah Jane Humphrey. Has done a specially commissioned illustration for each variety, and it's gorgeous. And from time to time, you get a little bit about a special person. So here's Gertrude Jekyll. I love this. Influential Gertrude Jekyll came to gardening relatively late in life, having had to abandon her earlier passions of painting and other complex crafts due to progressive myopia. She channeled her creativity into designing gardens by bringing a painterly eye for colour and plant textures to her designs. She travelled extensively and from 1863 collected plants from the wild in Britain and throughout Europe, taking them home to improve them for her clients. In 1889, she established a partnership with architect Edwin Lutyens. They were the original gardening dream team and collaborated on about 100 of the 400 gardens that Jekyll created in Britain, America, and Europe. She was a great promoter of using traditional arts and crafts to enhance her designs, fostering ideas of the correct relationship of a house, its garden, and plants. Jekyll also authored 13 books and contributed to the leading gardening magazines of the day. So you get a taste of the story of the extraordinary Gertrude Jekyll. And all the way through the book, you get little tastes that might take you off into further research It's a beginning. It's you step into a world in this book. Anyway, here we have something about tulips breaking a fever. The most fascinating thing about the tulip is that it has never possessed any medicinal properties nor served a utilitarian purpose. Granted, when prepared safely, the bulbs were eaten as a last resort during times of extreme food shortages. It's true, during the Second World War, people in the Netherlands ate tulip bulbs in extremis. It has little or no scent, so essentially tulips have never had any real purpose to justify their enormous presence in our gardens, apart from sitting there and just looking gorgeous. Anyway, I'm going to scoot on. When tulips emerged out of Turkey in the 16th century, if not earlier, they were already a thing of beauty and sophistication, with diverse colours and forms, having been in cultivation there for centuries. The person who popularised them from 1570 was the French botanist and physician Carolus Clusius. He sent the first bulbs to England around 1578, as noted by the English traveller and geographer Richard Hakluyt, who remarked in his 1582 publication, The Principal Navigations, Voyages and Discoveries of the English Nation, that within these 4 years there have been brought into England from Vienna diverse kinds of flowers called tulipas, procured thither by an excellent man called Monsieur Carolus Clusius. So already I've got, I want to go and find out more about Richard Hakluyt, about Carolus Clusius. I want to know more about the journey of the tulip. I feel as though I'm being given all sorts of tidbits to take me further into my tulip research. And then, of course, she talks about tulip fever. Holland, in particular, was hit the hardest in its desire for these almost magical flowers. Between 1634 and 1637, the most coveted flowers became these rare and mysteriously broken tulips. Enormous sums of money changed hands as bulbs, real or speculative, offered the potential to make everyone's fortune. This game of chance culminated in the well-recorded frenzy, tulipomania, literally tulip fury. But unbeknown to these frantic buyers, once the bulb's flower had broken, it grew weaker until it stopped flowering altogether. I love this. If she goes on to say that when the tulipomania bubble finally burst, never again, the people cried, true to their word, when the stirrings of hyacinth mania began to emerge nearly 100 years later. In the 1730s, the Dutch government swiftly printed a warning to head off a potential new flower fury. And then on we go to the early 20th century. So what sorcery was this that had led to the previous tulip madness? The answer was finally revealed in 1927 by Dorothy Mary Cayley, a mycologist working at the John Innes Institute. She discovered that the breaks which produced these beautiful tulips, so prized during tulipomania, were caused by a virus spread by aphids. And now I know that. Love this. By grafting one half of an infected bulb to a healthy half, the virus could be transmitted. Why did the answer not come sooner, people ask? The word virus wasn't understood in the modern sense until the 1880s, and the electron microscope, which enabled researchers to track the virus, was not developed until the 1920s. So there you have, and I've cut it a little bit, but you see how in 2 pages you're taken through a whole world of tulip history. You get a bit of everything. So I think this book is well worth it. And I know I will be buying copies to give as gifts because I think it's absolutely charming. But much more than charming. In each short section, there is so much information, and it's a step into all these different varieties, and I can feel myself being taken away into more research into lots of different ones. So thank you very much, Ad Bolly. I think it's an absolutely lovely book. And to go with it, here we have The Tulip Garden, which has just been published, and it's by my friend and colleague Polly Nicholson, who's a flower grower, Bainton Flowers, a little bit further east from here. And this is the full tulip. Absolutely gorgeous photographs, lists of varieties, fantastic different ways to grow them, look after them. It's a really in-depth, deep, serious look at tulips. It's what, if it were fiction, you'd say it was literary fiction. So if you want to get into the deep, dark centre of a tulip, then I think this is an absolutely lovely book. And it's only just arrived, so I haven't read it properly, but I can tell you, it's the literary fiction. It's not literary fiction, but it's literary non-fiction on tulips. Very good, inspiring. Onwards we go. I'm going to do Lisa Mason-Ziegler's new book on growing flowers next. If you are new to growing flowers and you'd like to get into the whole process, it is often the case that you'll start with annuals, which are quick, relatively easy, hard work, but satisfying. It's a way of making a cut flower garden very quickly, is to grow annuals. And Lisa is really an expert on growing annuals. Fantastic lists. And what I really like about this book is the beginning is all about your layout, your propagating. She's very good at soil blocking, all sorts of information on propagating and managing your plot. So if you're thinking about growing for sale, this is a really good book because of the layout information. If you're growing for fun, you can extrapolate what she puts here and shrink the numbers to suit you. She's got lots of tips that it's very nicely laid out. It's very clear. It's an easy book to work your way around. And I think with flower growing, it's very easy to be possibly a bit overwhelmed by options. And I think what Lisa's book does is it turns your options into, it takes all the big jobs apart, shrinks them and makes it manageable. In the same way that you would if you were planning a Christmas. If you were planning Christmas, you would split up the jobs and make it manageable, and then you can do it. Same thing with growing flowers. So lots of very good tips there. I'm sure it's going to do really well, and rightly so. And this one, if you're growing flowers for sale, I would say that this is worth every penny. And in England, it's £40, so it's not a cheap book. In America, it's $45. But Lenny Larkin has really taken apart the business of growing flowers for sale and written it down in readable form. It's a flower farming course in a book. It's all about the business. So the assumption here really is that you've got your gardening basics down, but you don't know how to turn your skill at growing flowers into something that brings you in a bit of an income. I think it's very clever, and I will probably read it cover to cover. I haven't yet. all of it is interesting. It takes, I think the thing about flower farming is sometimes people think that flower farming is as lovely as it looks. But actually, all businesses need to be run efficiently, and the way to run a business efficiently is by putting in place systems which can be repeated year after year. And this book gives you those systems. And while you don't have to take what she's written and copy it, I wouldn't ever do that, but she helps you think practically in a way that would mean that you could extrapolate what she's written here, take the way that she's suggesting you think and apply that to your own project. So I think it's a really excellent book. And I think it's a book that we've needed, we flower growers, over the years. There have been lots of different flower growing books, and I think the artisan flower farming business is so much more developed than it was when I started 15 years ago. And I think we could have done with this book all along. So there you go. A selection of really, really good books. Business. Brilliant way to grow. Intellectually stimulating. Really. It's like a monograph about tulips. Charming, inspiring, and will take you off on a journey of discovering more things. There you are. I hope you've enjoyed the clip, and I will see you again soon.